I want to share what happened last night. I was talking with my mom. No, my mom's deaf, keep that in mind. And she was telling me a story that really just surprised her. It happened one time, there was a cop pulled her over. It was at night. She'd been driving, same as everyone else. She was just going with traffic. She was just trying to go home. She was going 25 miles an hour, or speed limit was, but she ended up going about 29 ish. Now, my grandma is 92, and she was in the car as well. So my mom's driving, and she sees the cop, and she's like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'm good. I'm just kind of chilling. Nothing's crazy. Everything's relaxed." So she just kept going. But then the cop on the motorcycle, he came up behind her and just pulled her over, and she was so confused. She's like, "I'm not going fast. What's wrong?" So, she pulled over, and the cop pulled over behind her. But then he kept following her. Oh, she was the one being pulled. Okay, so the cop was following my mom. My mom had no idea what was going on, so my mom ended up pulling over, and she rolled down the window, and the cop looked at her and just started talking. And mom's like, she in her head, she's like, "I'm deaf. I don't know what you're saying. He can't sign." So she's looking up at him. She's like, "What do I do?" So she turns to her husband and starts signing. And the cop's like, "Oh, she's deaf. What do I do?" So when my mom looked back at the cop, he started mouthing really big and saying, "Can you read my lips?" And mom's like, "I sign better." I mean, she was asking for an interpreter. She started writing back and forth. I mean, the communication was just a struggle. It was awful. So she got out her driver's license. I mean, she was so lost. There was no clear reason why she had been pulled over. I mean, she wasn't speeding. So she was going back and forth with the cop. There was no understanding. There was so much confusion. The cop didn't offer her an interpreter or nothing. The police officer was only giving her the back and forth written communication. So he gives her a ticket and she's looking at it. And it was hard to read because it was in really, really fine print. So she had a hard time reading it. She couldn't read it. So they took it and later they figured out she had to go. And then she got fined. She didn't agree with why she was pulled over. She The cop didn't have any kind of radar or anything, so she didn't know why the heck she was getting pulled over. So the cop kept writing and writing and writing, and my mom had no idea what was going on. She's like, "I want an interpreter." They were going back and forth. It wasn't clear. There was no understanding. The written just wasn't working. She wanted an interpreter. And the policeman said no. Now, it's the law that interpreter has to be ready. So where where was the interpreter? Because like I said, the communication was just awful. There was mentions of court and fighting, and mom just wouldn't accept it. She would not sign the ticket. She's like, "What happens if I don't sign it?" The cop said, "You'll go to jail." She's like, "You want me to go to jail? Fine. Drive my husband and my grandma, who's sick, and you take them home." And it was just a constant struggle. I mean, it went on and on. My mom finally, she's just like, "Fine, I'll sign it." But she didn't really agree with it when she signed it. Now, she shouldn't have been pulled over to begin with. So she wrote it on the line. She said, "I don't understand why I'm getting this ticket." She was just trying to do some kind of empowerment for herself, but I mean, after that, she was just uneasy. And she learned from a friend who was a cop and talked to the interpreter. And she ended up going and complaining. So she went to a judge and she got some good support and found out that the law meant she had to have an interpreter supplied. So the state said, "What?" The state went to the DA and said, if there was no effort made for proper communication, an interpreter should have been there. If an interpreter wasn't there, there was a problem. Did they make an effort to be understood? And that was the case that ended up going to court. And it was very blurry. I mean, the law right there is extremely confusing. Should she have had an interpreter? Should she have gotten a ticket? That's up for you to discuss. By the way, before I forget to add, the ticket was really hard to read. I mean, it was super fine. And the charge she found out was $300, and it said she was going 40 miles per hour. Oh, said it was a construction zone. No, it really wasn't. It just there was no work. There was nothing. But that's what the ticket said. What she was just done with it. But we'll see what happens. I want to know what you think. You support it or